Welcome in to 11 Personnel presented by our good friends at Monticello Bank. I'm Nick Roush. He's Adam Luckett. Coffee count, what you on, Luckett? How many today?
I only had 3.
Only 3? Oh, interesting. Interesting. I'm up to 4. I thought about 5 before the show, but you know what? The viewers, the listeners, they're giving me all the energy I need because the transfer portal, it's open and we're here to talk about it. All of the craziness that's going down. Um, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. We'll discuss who's going in, who's going out, and a little bit of scoop that our fearless leader shared. I don't know if it qualifies as scoop, as scuttlebutt, or what, but we'll talk about it all. But first, we got to talk to you about our friends at Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel. Thanks to them, we're logging overtime, right? Our plan is to go today and possibly Thursday. I feel like Tuesday, Thursday is a good way to kind of slog through this unless some big news happens, which you never know. You never know what kind of big news is going to happen during the transfer portal. But you do know that you're in good hands if you bank with Monticello Bank because they've been old reliable for the Commonwealth for 128 years, putting people first. It's where people matter at Monticello Bank. They've got convenient branches all around the Commonwealth to help put the numbers on your side. Get the best deal possible, whether it's personal banking, well, maybe you got a business and they need help with a little small business loan. Whatever the case may be, they're going to hook you up with the best rate possible at Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Look at no new entries into the transfer portal today, but we are up to 19 players so far. When Tuesday started, that was the second most out of any Power 4 school, just behind Arkansas. Uh, not gonna lie, I thought it was gonna be more. Thought it was gonna be more. Uh, Still, I think there's some people who are wondering about a few players here and there, but 4 portal entries on Monday so far. Uh, I don't think there have been any huge surprises other than the news we learned yesterday that Chip Trainham is hitting the portal after only 1 year in Lexington, 19 carries, 101 yards. Look, they brought him in to be a bell cow. He broke his hand. He could never be that bell cow. Mark Stoops said last week that Chip expressed a desire to return, and maybe that changed when he learned he wasn't going to get as much money as he did maybe this go around. I don't know what changed, but you've brought it up before with both him and Jamori Macklin, 4 schools in 6 years. I didn't. I thought he'd stay put, but I guess he had different plans.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the fact that Kentucky's running back shopping in the portal. Jamarian Wilcox looks like he's returning. How many touches are you going to get, too? This is last
Yeah.
year,
Mm-hmm.
last chance to impress NFL personnel. So he's got to, I think about that. Go to a place where you're going to get touches. So I would imagine that has something to do with that decision.
Nevertheless, it was a little bit of a okay, so only 3 running backs now. How's because you weren't necessarily sure about that, Luckett, but you also had Marquise Davis in the fold, this time a week ago or 8 days ago or whatever it may be. So you went from having maybe 5 guys down to 3 just like that.
Yeah, things move fast at this time of year. You've got 3 guys in the running back room. You've got 3 guys in the tight end room, scholarship wise. So you've got to load up on that. And yeah, Trainham leaving means more carries for Jeremiah and Wilcox, but there's some trustability probably factors
Yes.
with Wilcox. This is also a guy who fumbled 3 times in 90 carries on top of shoelace gate,
Mhm.
right? So they've got to, I think the plan is to probably find a starter. And then what do they do after that? Do they add a second running back? Because numbers wise, they just need it. So that's going to be interesting to see how they manage that. Nick, you mentioned the total number. I mean, we've just never seen Mark Stoops really lean into this and be like, all right, let's totally clear the deck here. They signed 21, 22 high school players. They're not going to want to bring in 20-some portal players, I would imagine. They're going to want to be around – they want to be in the teens. I think they would prefer to be around 12. I think they're going to end up being like 18 this year. But that's kind of where they want to be.
Which would put you about 40 total new players. The way that Stoops talked about how they're going to basically have to show some guys the door made me think that there would be – that they would want to bring in 20 new guys from the portal, which meant, maybe 25-ish, 30-ish departures.
I've got them at 74 scholarships accounted for. That is including Maxwell Hairston, De'Aaron Jackson, who both we think could enter the draft, and then Brock Vandegrift, who I think we both expect to make an announcement that he won't be on the team next year at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So that gets them to 71. So they got 14 really, I think, to spend right now. So they're not done, I don't think yet. I think you're going to see probably 3 to 6, maybe 4 to 6 more players off this roster. Off this roster leave, but it's important to remember too that can happen in the spring.
That's true.
Because you see that every spring where players come back, they don't like where they are on the depth chart, then decide to leave. So we got that wave to get to as well, but I would imagine most of this winter attrition is done as of now. Not done as of, or close to done as of now. I don't expect too many more Kentucky players to leave, but you never know.
It's true. You do never know. You mentioned the spring. There was a rule clarification that Ross Dellinger reported yesterday that while they got to get down to a certain number on their roster, they don't have to do that until game 1. So you don't have to be at 85 scholarship players.
I think that was a change because I think it was reported that it was 85 like immediately. So I think they might have tweaked that rule.
Yeah, so that was, I think, a significant report because even Stoops, he had some anxiety about it recently. I don't know if it was a conference call or whatever it was that he was talking about, like, how am I going to get it down to this in January? And they were trying to figure out their way through that. We mentioned Chip. Are there any other departures that you specifically wanted to hit on outside of the big 3? Because I think we discussed some of them already last week. We can talk about where they're potentially going to go. But are there any others outside of those big 3 that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, Gavin Wimsatt, it was just kind of, Stoops mentioned him in his signing day press conference. I think you got to go back and question, like, what was the deal with that addition? Why did you try to play him all year and then all of a sudden not want to play him? The usage, I just have a lot of questions. We'll never find the answer to, at least not on the record. But the usage was just bewildering with him this year. So that was a little bit of surprise, I would say. Other than that, I think
let's just talk about Gavin for a second, because that was you and I could have explained it off the jump that, hey, you go and get this guy because, A, he doesn't have many places to go, right? It's spring ball. He loses his spring job. Like, how many places can he go? Kentucky's a spot where, Bush Hamden likes a running guy. You can try him out, and they're not certain on their QB1, so maybe you can get a second chance in the SEC. And then if it doesn't work out, you go play your last season of football elsewhere at a place where you're going to start. That's where it made sense. But then once we got into the season, you're right. Did they actually like him or not? I feel like they definitely said, no, we don't like you after they tried the Auburn game and it didn't work. And then the pick 6 at Tennessee. Like, those were 2 defining moments where they were just like, all right, this clearly isn't working. But I don't know why they felt the need to try it out for so long, because they used him almost like you would have used an Avery Johnson. Like, he got the same treatment that a 5-star kid out of high school gets when they're a true freshman, and you're playing him to keep him happy. Like, that was what they did with Brian Brom, Stephon LaFours 15 years ago. Like, what
Texas is doing with Arch Manning right now.
Yeah, and it's like, but we know who Gavin Wimsatt is. He started for a year and a half, essentially, at Rutgers. That was just one of the more bewildering parts of the season. I won't understand that. I won't understand a lot of things how they went down in this season. But the Gavin Wimsatt bit, I think the part about it for me too is it was like, but you say you like Brock and you keep trying Brock. Like, which one? What's it going to
Which one
be?
is it? Yeah.
And then they did the same thing with Wilcox, and it's like, well, are you giving him a chance or are you not giving him a chance? Like, I just can't. It was just everything was so wishy washy with how they used their players this season on offense.
Yeah, I think dating back to the spring, they were in full panic mode. We got to go get a quarterback. We got to go get a running back. At the end, when they took Mincy, like, we got to get a tackle. It seemed like they got in full panic mode on a lot of those moves.
Mm-hmm.
And ended up kind of, that never went away. It kind of bled into the season. And then we saw them, shuffling everything they possibly could all year long. And so we'll see if they can get that fixed here in the offseason. I think some other takeaways, really, it was tight end and edge that they had that many guys leave at those positions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised guys left, but I thought they probably would have kept one more at all of those positions. So now that puts them kind of a precarious situation right now in both of those spots. Kentucky wants to play a lot of tight ends. They have 3, and Mikael Skinner might as well be a receiver at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to really want to use him as a blocker. Willie Rodriguez struggled as a blocker last year. So where are you at there? I think edge is a huge position they got to get right this offseason. And I think they've got a pretty good list of candidates, I think, right now. We'll see where that goes. But those are 2 positions that they got to that they really have to address, along with tailback that we've already mentioned, because their depth has kind of been decimated in all 3 of those rooms.
The point you made about edge too, I'd like to take it to another one because we talk about the transfer portal misses, Mincy, Brock, Chip. Some of those, the misses, if you will, are probably out of their hands. But the misses are in the high school ranks as well. Tyrese Fearbury, that dude looks like a can't miss high school football prospect. And in 3 years, he's leaving with 1 tackle for loss. Like, I don't know how that happens. Like, that seemed like a guy who was primed and prepped to be that guy, that kind of dude in the SEC. And whether it's coaching, whether it's the player, whether it's Miss Eva, I don't know. I'm just going to call it a blanket recruiting miss because it was. Like, they missed out on him. They had Keaton Wade in the same class and let Keaton Wade walk. Maybe there was, maybe they couldn't keep him from walking. But I thought they made the right decision at the time that Fearbury was the dude long term who was going to be the guy. And Wade came in this year. He was injured and then immediately was awesome for Colorado and is going to redshirt.
Mm-hmm.
Probably be a pretty good ball player for him. So that sort of miss is brutal. And then I guess it was Brandon White who, when his departure, left only 2 players from that class of 2022 on the roster, which, you looked at that was the best recruiting class ever at Kentucky. This is their 4th year. They should be badasses or in the NFL. And that's not the case.
It should be the leaders of your football team.
Yes.
There's 2 of them. Right.
And there's only 2. And then the class right behind them, how many's there left there?
Grant Godfrey, 9? Kendrick Gilbert, Tavian Gatson, Jamarian Wilcox, Kobe Keenum, Austin Ramsey, Ty Bryant, Malachi Wood, Nasir Addison. I think that's 9 I just named.
And I don't think how many of those are going to be, do we know are going to be starters next year?
Ty Bryant and Wilcox will get starters, snaps. Everyone else, I think, is going to be in the 2s.
So
next year's team.
Yeah. The failure in roster building, a failure in development.
Yeah, just
Recruit and develop.
Just ask the question: are they broken? The recruit and develop model. Just look at that. It seems broken. What they're doing. So they're still not quitting that. Like they are cutting ties with players, but they're still not quitting that model. They still signed 20-something players in this high school class. So they're trying to fix the problems with their same solutions. Now we'll see if they can fix those problems. I think it's fair to be skeptical because of what we've seen play out over the last couple of years. And I think you point to that 2022 class, Nick. I think the recruiting part of that was really, really good.
Yes.
The development part of that, I think you can really question and criticize. Where's Deion Walker going to fall in the draft?
Mm-hmm.
He was a top 10 pick coming into the year.
Yep. Then look at the receivers. Did they get any
Varian
better
Brown.
after their freshman year? No.
Dane Key did.
I mean, Dane did.
Dane
Yeah.
Key,
Yeah.
Dane Key did.
But none of those other fast guys amounted to anything. The speedsters.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Fari played linebacker this year inside. Did not go well, for being honest.
Yeah.
Josh Caddis has not got any better.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can make a point that his development has been pretty disappointing based off what we saw from him as a true freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes, it is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're in this huge hole because of those misses, or what is left on the roster from those 22 and 23 recruiting classes. And now you're in a situation where you're like, we've got a culture problem, and what's going to fix it? Portal players. And it's the same thing. Like, this is a bigger scope we're dealing with now, but it's the same messaging, really. We've got to get leadership. Like, that was a quote, leadership from the portal. It's just like, that feels like something that'd be hard to do. Like, feels like something that would be hard to do. It should be maybe the opposite. And so for Kentucky moving forward, I think it's really important that this 24 class, like, they find players from that class.
Because the portal class didn't work, so the high school needs to. I was going through, wrote about it this afternoon, but like the 24 portal class, it's like Pop, Jalen Farmer, and
DJ Waller's TBD. Aiden Laros was good,
but Waller TBD and Jamoy Macklin TBD. But the rest, and you got 14 players out of that. You can't have just when you think back on their first portal class, before everything was pay for play NIL, they only took 7 and 4 of them became starters. 3 of them became awesome all SEC caliber. Not 3 of them became awesome, but 4 were starters out of 7. You went from a 56%
high end SEC starters.
Yes. Derek Rosenthal, Wandale Robinson, Will Levis, Tayshawn Manning started in year 2 out of that 7. 4 out of those 7. And then this class, you had 14 and you had fewer starters. That just doesn't. It can't happen. It can't happen. Which is why there's a big emphasis on who they get this go around. We're going to talk about who they get this go around, but first, some other big picture stuff. We went into this offseason expecting a lot of coaching turnover. Brad's White name was involved with a lot of jobs. We got some scuttlebutt at Florida State that he was kind of the leader for that job for a while. That didn't happen. We thought Matt previously stated that he thought Mike Stoops might have hung it up. But it turns out the only coaching change was the only seemingly outsider of the group, and that is Dyke Hill Shorts going to Nebraska. Matt Jones said today that he doesn't expect any more coaching changes, which I know that's going to greatly disappoint some people because, for one, we just talked about the lack of development, and that goes to the coaches. 2, I mean, I remember being on this show a year ago, like, and thinking they'd have like 3 or 4 because it was the results weren't good enough, and nothing's changed. It's just like, well, we'll get a new
I mean,
receivers coach.
well, I mean, Stoops didn't want to change offensive line coaches last year. The only reason they changed is because Nick Saban retired and Eric Wolford became a free agent. He didn't want to change even
Yeah.
before that happened. So, again, a lot of these guys, Nick, have signed extensions here recently. Buffano signed an extension. Anwar Stewart, I think, signed an extension. Mike Stoops recently signed an extension. So a lot of these guys still have deals that they would have to buy out and then pay a new coach. I'm not saying that's stopping Stoops from making any moves, but
Something to consider.
He's talked extensively about wanting stability. We'll see if that pays off.
I think we just have this old radio bit where it's like, oh, they're bringing X amount of starters back, and it's like, well, if those starters stunk, then what does continuity matter if it was bad? I think that's where a lot of people are.
Yeah, I think too, like, if they got a new, like, not a coordinator, just a new position coach, pick your position.
Yes.
Pick your position. Like, what is that changing? It's
Right.
not changing people's opinion. So either way, if you're Mark Stoops, he's in this area, he's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you've got to pick your fighter and say we're going into battle, and he's picking stability, which is his choice, but that is all that's going to be under the microscope if this year doesn't go well, but it was regardless. So what I'm saying? It doesn't
right.
really,
so how much does it actually make a difference?
Yeah.
If you're making a move just to look like you're making a move,
right.
I
think the one big one is obviously offensive coordinator, and that one, I think if you just look at the results, just the numbers, the other two, every other offense that produced numbers like this, they made a change at offensive coordinator each year.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time where the offense was this bad, where I would say like sub 100 bad, and he's not making a change. And I think the reason he's doing that is just he can't do it again, right?
Well, the part of it that I really wonder is this: it's like the offense was bad. You need to see something be different. And I know we're only 36 hours into this transfer portal, but we've got a better idea of what they're doing defensively than what they're doing offensively. Tackle and running back. We got one running back, 3 tackles, but the rest is it's defensive players. So that's the other part where I'm like, well, the whole point was let Bush get his guys. Is he getting any of his guys? I don't see all these prospects tweeting out like Kentucky offered. You know what? What are you doing? And they're not
right. You're seeing it with Brad White, but you're not seeing it with Bush Hamden now.
And then the other part too, they're like, what are you doing? I think they're going to do this again, Luckett. I think they're just not going to say anything at all. I think that they're going to go 0 dark 30 over there. They're going to do the same thing they always do, where we got to scratch and claw and internet sleuth and get prize stuff from out of these kids, and they're going to buy no goodwill from anybody. So it's certainly one strategy.
Yeah, it's a strategy I disagree with, but again, if you're
choosing.
If you're in Mark Stoops' shoes, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So,
some of the like I initially believed some of their, if we let it out there, then other people might find out about X guy and then start recruiting him. But even if that's, like Derek Simmons, for example, one of the offensive tackles we're going to talk about, like, you aren't keeping that secret. He's a good player. Like, other people are going to host him on visits. You've got to win recruiting battle. You can't just like keep these guys secret. So like that argument's bunk. The the maddest people right now at the Kentucky football program are the 310 people who are watching this right now, who are on KS board, who are desperate for information, and they're not making any attempt to share that. And that's I don't know why you wouldn't want to try to win those people over, but maybe you're right. Like maybe it's just damned if you do, damned if you don't, so you just don't. Maybe that's the secret to the sauce. So I'm not changing, so quit asking. Which that is the ultimate $1 million question is like, is anything actually changing at all? Is anything going to change at all this offseason?
I mean, are we going to hear about it at all? We've heard that there's probably going to be some sports staff shakeup. Potentially,
but
are we going to hear about it, or is it going to have to be me figure out? Oh, they have changed up job titles. There's new guys doing these roles here. Yeah. I think
Tanner just nailed it. He just said, "This is just sad to listen to." I'm sorry, Tanner. I wish we weren't. And we're not trying to be nihilistic by any means. And the thing is like when we're doing the day-to-day grind, like I don't feel as much that way. But then you start like sussing it all out, and it just sucks.
Yeah. You don't want to overreact either. This is a long process, this winter portal.
It's very true. Yep.
It lasts a month, and it goes really 2.5 months because players just have to enter by a certain time. There's going to be players on playoff teams that enter, players on bowl teams that enter. Like Kentucky lost Justin Rogers. Remember, it was after the Music City Bowl. Like this is a long process, so you don't want to overreact. But to me, my early reaction is it's like, yeah, you can squint and see it with the guys, but it's like if this is their team, it's just hard to see against this schedule how they win. Win more than 4, 5, 6 games. 3, 4, 5, 6 games as of now. But again, you do not want to overreact because we are just in the beginning of a multi-week in a kind of a layered process.
We'll see.
But then again,
a lot ahead of us.
They could sign a top 5 portal class, but there's no one in the PR like for them.
Yeah. Well, especially because they signed a talented portal class a year ago, and on paper it looked good, but look where it got them. I will tell you that if you sign up for the Game Time app and use promo code KSR, it's going to get you $20 off your first purchase. You should do that. GameTime.co, the best place to get your last minute tickets for whatever you want to do. It's 2 weeks till Christmas. 2 weeks till Christmas Eve today. That's crazy. So go ahead and make sure that the people you love in your life, they got tickets to something, whether it's concerts, sporting events, comedy show, Game Time, they will hook you up. It's the most efficient way to get tickets directly to your phone. Send them to all your friends and family. Get great seats. You see the seats before you buy them. You can hit the GT picks. You'll get the best ticket at the best price. Wade through all the nonsense. You can also check the box too that shows you the all-inclusive pricing. So you're not getting surprised by late fees or wherever it may be. So go ahead, give the gift of a live event by purchasing some tickets for your loved ones this year through Game Time. Promo code KSR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply with the Game Time app. Luckett, were you sad you didn't have tickets to watch the Bengals last night at Jerry World? Or were you happy to watch the Simpsons broadcast?
While I was watching that game, I was realizing this was like this time a year ago, I was in Jacksonville watching Jake Browning football. And the Bengals kind of pulled one out of their rear, and almost the same thing happened a year later. So I did enjoy that. It's always good to beat the Cowboys. So that was fun. And I was trying to explain to my wife Taylor what the Simpsons broadcast is and who the Simpsons characters are. Like you texted me and I was laughing because you said Bart threw the touchdown pass to
To Ralph
Ralph.
Wiggum. Yeah.
And I'm trying to explain, and she was looking at me like I was trying to explain what the middle linebacker's job is in Tampa 2. Like she just had no idea what I was talking about. And so that was and then it was like 10 minutes. I'm like, what am I even doing? I'm just gonna send you this video and this is what they're doing. I don't really know how else to explain it.
It so I'm sure it's different because it was your team. I liked it from afar to watch a couple drives because like those are two just bad football teams. And that made it a little bit more amusing when they're like, "Oh, Bart Simpson's coming into the game and play quarterback. Let's see. Oh, Lisa, she turns on the Jets for the game-winning touchdown. Oh!" And then the flames are coming out. Like it was silly and it was kind of fun. Like I enjoy the silliness. I'm admittedly not a Simpsons fan though. Like that was just a little old for me. I was more of a Family Guy, South Park guy, so it didn't push all the right buttons for me. But I enjoyed it for a little bit. I didn't watch any of the I only watched the Simpsons broadcast, so they at least got me. They got me there. So well done, ESPN. That was kind of fun. Although I don't think the technology could truly handle the punt block that the Bengals won on. Like what a it took getting your
Listen
punt
here.
blocked and
We
bouncing
were
off of a player for you to win a damn one-score game.
listen here. We were due, all right? Like I don't want to hear it. We're due a break. We got one. The most ridiculous break possible. But fine. But hell, if they would call the face mask, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
That was like the game where BYU lost because the other team quick kicked it. Kansas quick kicked it, and it bounced off the other dude's shoulder pads and right to him. Like it was just like, what is going on here? So that was absolute silliness. I guess we should get into some more serious stuff. We have at least 2 confirmed visitors. I don't think that list has grown at all today.
Now we're sitting at 2 right now, and they're working on some others. But in the conversations I've had, there's a lot of we've talked, but that's about it.
Yes. Maybe they have an offer that they'll share, but there's not concrete plans in place. There's people narrowing choices and cutting lists. But let's start with the visitors. First up, Landon Watson, Marshall linebacker, started his career at TCU. Look at a lot of people see that and they say, are we sure they're recruiting the right Marshall linebacker? He'll be here on Thursday. What do you think of this guy?
I would say this, I think they might be recruiting both Marshall linebackers. Jaden Yates is the other guy. Just stay tuned there.
That would make sense.
Yeah, this guy is from Austin, Texas. Was a top 500 recruit. Landon Watson doesn't really play through 2 years at TCU, stays through the coaching change, leaves, mainly plays special teams in 2023 at Marshall, steps in, was a starter this year, was a quality starter. The missed tackle numbers are not great, but overall had a good season, productive season. Now he's in the portal looking for a new home. The question would be, is he at like a Dave Rayner ad where you want him to be a backup? Or are you bringing him in to be a starter? That's what you're trying to figure out right now. Again, but Kentucky, scholarship-wise, logjam. We've got them at 8 scholarship linebackers right now. And so how they kind of manage all of that is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, what's Rayner doing? Is he, they kept his red shirt, so is he red shirting to stay or is he red shirting to go?
Yeah, I think you have to assume he's staying until he says he isn't.
Until they bring in somebody better and he wants out.
But Watson's an experienced linebacker, older guy, played on a Sun Belt title team, was on a TCU team that went to the national championship game. So he's been around winning football organizations. I think that's important. It can't hurt, at least when you're trying to reset a culture. And so he's a guy I think definitely is probably on commitment watch here. I believe he arrives later this week. And so once he gets to campus,
Thursday,
that could very well be their first portal ad.
The other visit is Derek Simmons on Monday. He will be in Lexington. I don't know how many confirmed other visits, but he's generated a lot of interest from big time programs. Was most recently at Western Carolina. I love that he started his career at Tusculum, which is a small school, I believe, in like Smoky Mountains or Appalachia somewhere. I forget if it was Tennessee or North Georgia, but um, I remember Tusculum because I would get mail from them, and I'd have their coaches like reach out, and I'm like, I'm not playing college sports at Tusculum. For him to rise from that level to be getting interest, like serious interest from SEC programs. I know Oklahoma was another one. Uh, that's pretty remarkable. He's one of the more sought after players who only has 1 year of eligibility remaining.
Yeah, and he's not the only former Division II player they're recruiting. Tight end Zach Atkins, North Missouri State. I believe there's another one that started in Division II. So this is one of the cooler stories I think about the portal era is players like this
Mm-hmm.
can climb up the ranks and play at a high level. To me, Nick, one to watch here that I don't think really people are discussing much. Cade Bell, who's Pitt's offensive coordinator, was his coach at Western Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Pitt just had a really good year. They're recruiting him. They give it a visit. I mean, typically in
Yeah.
these portal guys, if they've hit it off and their old coach goes somewhere, as long as they go relate, they typically a lot of times they go there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. This might end up being a money thing that might give Kentucky a chance. This guy played in a pass-heavy offense at Western Carolina, played both right and left tackle, has good protection numbers, real like 6'6", 300 pounds, which is kind of standing out in some of these early targets. All these guys are 6'6" plus, 300 plus pounds. So obviously size seems like a big check or a big box they want checked. And so, yeah, I mean, he's got plenty of suitors. Texas Tech's getting a visit. Kentucky's getting a visit. Pitt's getting a visit. Georgia Tech is getting a visit. Think highly of Brent Key and what he's done offensive line wise throughout his career. And so, yeah, I think you could definitely see it with that guy, and that's a guy they're going to try to make a move on, and we'll see where it lands. But I do think you just need to know of that Pitt and that Cade Bell factor. He played there. And I think if everything fits there, I think they maybe consider the favorite for him just because of that, considering that they have that relationship.
Well,
And
we're
they brought
on.
his offensive, and I'm pretty sure he brought the Western Carolina OL coach to Pitt too. So that's something to just monitor.
Well, we're on offensive tackles. Let's just go ahead and talk offensive tackles because that's a position that's important for most of you out there watching and listening. And we know of at least two others that they're recruiting out there. One is Ethan Onianwa, 3-year starter from Rice. I think I did the math. He's got like 2,200 snaps under his belt. I mean, he's played a lot of football, 6'6", 345. The other one, Isaiah World from Nevada, big boy, 6'8", 309 pounds. Another 3-year starter. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. You can talk yourself into all of these guys like it. I think pretty easily. Like big SOB who's played a lot of football. I like that they played a lot of football. That to me
Right.
is, I think that because thing is, I'm not saying they're a dime a dozen, but like some of these former blue chip offensive linemen that are leaving after a year or something, you can take a chance on them, but it's a risk because you don't know if they can play, period, or if they were just big guys at the high school level. This, you know what he can do at this level. You know that there's not
The floor are higher with these guys.
yes, and that's what they have to have for these offensive tackle. There's no room to roll the dice because you missed on other offensive tackle prospects.
Yeah, something important I think to point out for all of these guys, they're all like 3-year starters. First off, so they've played a lot of football. To your point, snap count wise, they've all played right tackle and left tackle. Like, so they have experience playing multiple positions, and they've all been good pass protectors. Specifically this last season, they all really did well in pass protection. You don't need a football Frank answer to understand Kentucky's pass protection stunk last year. So you got to fix that. And so I think these are signs that they're trying to fix that. And so these three guys, I think, there's going to be a level of prove it from my ceiling aspect, but I do think floor wise, they bring a higher floor than what Kentucky had at tackle last year. They have a lot of experience. And again, Marcus Cox, this past season didn't go well for him. There was some injury kind of scuttlebutt for him, but the year before he was good. He was Kentucky's best lineman.
Yeah.
That was a good ad. I think that's what they're trying to replicate this year.
Hopefully they can make it happen. You can find all of Luckett's big board targets over on KSR Plus right now. And for our YouTube viewers, UK1 will get you 2 months of access for only $1. So go ahead, sign up today using promo code UK1 to be able to see the full list of targets. I wanted to hit on 2 more big ones because if we just sit here and rattle off names, that might be silly. But one of them is the biggest one that we know of so far, Ahmad Hardy, the Louisiana Monroe running back who had 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns as a true freshman. That's pretty good for a team that is traditionally one of the worst teams in the FBS. He is a sought-after commodity, a hot target who's taking visits to Auburn and Ole Miss. UK's working to get him on campus. This is their big swing that they're trying to hit from the portal at running back.
I've had a few people, maybe more than a few, tell me Kentucky Mark Stoops needs to find their Cam Scattaboo. Find a guy who can just break a ton of tackles and create plays. There's 2 players per PFF charting that have broken more tackles than Cam Scattaboo. Ashton Genty and Ahmad Hardy.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Turn on Ahmad Hardy's tape. One cut, downhill runner, great contact balance, breaks tackles, and has some juice. And once he gets out in the open field, true freshman playing in an offense that was allergic to the forward pass and still produced those numbers. Ran for over 200 twice. To me, Nick, the consistency, 8 100-yard games, playing defenses that knew that they were going to run the football, were still able to run it. 200-plus pounds. There's a lot to like about that guy. He looks like a guy that can be a workhorse for his next offense. That's to me, he's kind of what Kentucky needs, just a downhill, physical runner who can break tackles, fall forward, keep the offensive head of the chains. That's what they need. So he's a big one to me. If you're going to spend money, we could sit here and argue the value of a running back and how much they should spend on a salary cap. Mm-hmm. But I don't know the salary cap numbers. And I know in Kentucky, I think they feel like they need to have someone like this. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Now they got to get a visit scheduled for him. Ole Miss and Auburn already got him locked in. Kentucky and Oregon are the other 2 fighting here for Hardy. He's told KSR Plus that he's in contact with the Kentucky staff. They're having consistent conversations, but no visit has been scheduled yet. And so that's what we're waiting to see if that can get locked in.
To that point on should you go all in on a running back or not? The answer is probably not, but at Kentucky you probably should, because there's no there was no old reliable that they could go to last year. They had no here's our basic stuff that we do well. Maybe that's what it takes at Kentucky. You just have to pay a guy to come in and give you the basics. And if this guy can do it, they've leaned on bell cows throughout the Stoops tenure to just, hey, when in doubt, just feed that guy, let him tote the rock. So you know what? If that's what they feel they need to be successful offensively, then just make sure you get him. You can't afford to miss out on him. I was intrigued by Fluff Bothwell. We haven't heard any contact, we haven't heard any reports out of that one, but he's very similar in that bruiser, breaks tackles, great pad level. Wasn't as productive, but I think there might have been an injury in there. I thought Kentucky might try to get involved in that one as well. Maybe he could be considered back if they do swing and miss on Hardy.
Yeah, I think Hardy is the best back in the portal as of now. We'll see where that goes, but he fits what I think Kentucky is looking for and they need. That's one we're definitely following closely here over the next couple weeks or days. We'll see how fast it moves.
You'll never believe this, Luckett, but Destin Wade is entering the portal.
I just saw that.
Yeah, shocked. Very shocked to see that news. If you want to get, is there any other individuals you want to specifically talk about? Dealer's choice on some of these transfer portal targets, because there's about 15 to or so that we've got out here. Is there one in particular? Because we got to make the people go to KSR Plus. You got to click the link, buddy. We're not giving this all out for free.
Bryce Pollock, Mississippi State cornerback, played, in my opinion, at an all-SEC level this year on a bad defense, but still had a good season. Just had a update with Jacob over there. It's out on KSR Plus right now. This guy, Nick, I think might be the best player on our board, Kentucky's target board right now. It might end up being the best player Kentucky is after. They're aggressively recruiting him, trying to get a visit locked in. Michigan's already got a visit locked in. I think Georgia's sniffing around. He's a big one. And not only that, like, they are hitting corner a lot, like, harder than I thought they would.
Yes.
Him, Marcellus Barnes, is it?
Yes, from Syracuse. Former Georgia commit. Yeah.
And then the nickel Scruggs out of South Alabama, they're hitting that position hard. One interesting thing about the Syracuse transfer, let me pull up the name here, Marcellus Barnes Jr., Chattanooga native. Who's from Chattanooga? Martellus Carter.
Yeah. There's a lot of MPA guys. And MPA is
Eric Rivers, another Chattanooga guy, went to high school with Marcellus Barnes.
McCallie
started at Memphis, ended up at FIU, had a monster season for FIU last year. Chattanooga guy. Martellus Carter's from Chattanooga. They got a Chattanooga Paducah Tillman pipeline. Southern Cal, and Jacob drops it. Pollock is no longer visiting Michigan, so that's not a bad sign. There's a tackle at Tillman, Nick. The name escaping me. I'm pretty sure he is originally from Chattanooga in the 26 class. So there's a relationship there. And so we'll see if Kentucky can do anything with that. Eric Rivers probably had my favorite tweet of the portal cycle, which was from Hayes Fawcett, and was pretty much like 40 schools are recruiting me.
That was good.
Everyone's in the chat having a party. We're having a little cocktail hour in the Eric Rivers recruiting lounge.
Before we get out of here, I did want to mention off the top, Dane Key, a lot of Nebraska, a lot of Georgia. I saw some Louisville out there. That would not be cool. Louisville's hosting Miller Moss today. Keyshawn Silver's got 4: Michigan, Florida State, and Miami. So let's get him to not go to Florida. I would rather not have to block him next year. And then Barry Brown, he's going to get a bag dropped on his head. It looks like LSU, but I would say that the funniest thing I've seen on the internet, I've seen a lot of funny things, especially people referring to like God's plan. And it's like, wow, I didn't know God was such a big college football fan. That made me laugh a lot. And then the ESPN scout who said that Barry Brown's great at winning one-on-one balls. That just, I mean, God, I laughed so hard at that. I was like, man, if that was true, he'd be in the NFL. He'd be Randy freaking Moss if he could do that. But you know, the portal, it's silly. Fornelli had a meme, and it was like the little dog who's just like a normal dog, and then when they go in the portal, they're like this yoked up, like, oh, I'm the Superman. Like, that's how a lot of this is like the players, they're on the move, they're all of a sudden become better. Really got a good laugh out of a Nebraska fan being like, Brandon White, well, that's a Husker. Like, like, dude, his only play at Kentucky in 3 years was a fumbled kickoff return. Like, oh, you want that guy? Go ahead. So it's funny. It's really silly out here right now. Which the plans to be back Thursday. Luckett. Will Bill Belichick be the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels on Thursday, or has this been a great elaborate ruse? It feels like a great elaborate ruse. The interviewing Steve Wilkes isn't getting enough talk for being just like that is confirmed shit show. If you're interviewing Steve Wilkes, that guy sucks at coaching college football. He was an abject failure. He almost got drink fired at Missouri. The fact that they're interviewing him, what the hell are they doing down there in North Carolina? This has gone on way too long.
I mean, he's not at the, I wouldn't say the tenure with the 49ers went too well either. He really made the Super Bowl last year. Well, it sounds like Summerall pulled out. Sounds like Matt Campbell turned down an interview. They've got major infighting going on with their AD, Bubba Cunningham, and their trustees, boosters, chancellor. Mac Brown had friends. So it could get good. Like it's already good. They wanted to have a hire on Sunday, and it's 48 hours probably past the time where they wanted to have a hire. It sounds like, Belichick has a long list of demands that they have to meet, and are they going to be willing to meet them? It's fascinating. Just him being there is fascinating, but them going this far down the road and them not hiring him, it's also fascinating. Yeah. So this thing could get even more messy. It's been an awful, messy search. And
firing one 70-year-old to hire another 70-year-old would be just a hilarious strategy too. I mean, set aside the fact, Mac Brown was a national champion. He'd coached there before. Bill Belichick, Super Bowl champion, but it's still be just so weird. And man, who said this coaching carousel was boring? I think it's been delightful, albeit a little bit the volume not as high as we might have expected. But yes, you did mention John Summerall turned him down. I enjoyed his comments following the conference championship game where they got wrecked by Army. That was a disappointing game where they just kept making mistakes and they completely Army just steamrolled them, completely capitalized on every single one of those mistakes.
Yeah, it was self-inflicted, I think. The weird stuff with the kicker was just like, oh my God, what's going on here?
That was bizarre. But those comments, that video that you shared on KS Board, like he got pretty, like coaches normally don't get that detailed when they talk about this stuff. He was just like, my agent handles it all, which I believe him. I don't think these coaches have a lot of time to go back and forth with schools. They got other stuff to do in their regular job to handle.
Yep. So, yeah, I just think again, I think in a couple episodes we talked about just didn't make sense for Summerall to go to North Carolina based off what could be on the table next year. Regardless of that's not even considering Kentucky. Like he's probably going to be in a position to get an SEC job or maybe a good Big Ten job next year. So why would you want to go to ACC that's got obvious administration issues and that's going to be behind the 8 ball when compared to teams in the big SEC and Big Ten for now? So I think it just made a lot of sense for him to stay put and do another year at Tulane.
Well, he got a little contract extension too. Nice little pay bump out of it. 8-2 start, but finished with consecutive losses. And they're playing. Who are they playing in the bowl game? I don't know. I heard somebody talking about the bowl games today, and I'm like, well, Tulane's quarterback's in the portal. Like, who knows who's going to be playing in these bowl games?
They play Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl.
Get your Gasparillas out. It's time for a party at the Trop, which is now destroyed. Who knows? God, who knows where they're playing that game? I would assume
they play the Buck Stadium now.
Yeah. I would assume they would just move there. But Army Navy this weekend. Bowl games around the corner. We got a playoff bracket. Maybe we'll talk about that more on Thursday. But we got to get back to the board and see what we've missed in the portal. It's portal chaos happening left and right. Appreciate you all joining us. We'll see you next time on 11 Personnel.